When I look back on that time now, I always I talk about them as being the dark years. I just remember everything being so dark back then. A lot of the things that were happening in me were physical. I was having real physical symptoms. A lot of the things that were happening to me was, of course, spiritual. I wasn't trusting God. When He tells us specifically to live by faith and put our trust in Him. Mentally, I was taking a beating as well. I was not thinking right. I was thinking all the wrong thoughts. I was thinking terrifying thoughts. I was thinking that God wouldn't come through for me. There were all kind of things that were happening during those years, the dark years. I got to where I couldn't drive a car. I was so fearful of driving my car that I would have a wreck and that I would have a heart attack and have a wreck and that I would end up killing my wife or whoever was in the car with me. So I got to the point where I couldn't drive. I got to the point where I couldn't stand to see the sun go down. Darkness it brought it on. Every time the nighttime would get there, it would just terrify me. I remember sitting in my living room and looking back down the hallway and seeing the bedrooms down the hallway were dark. And I would have to go back in there and turn the light on because I couldn't stand to have a dark room in the house. I got to where just even taking a walk, sometimes I would walk two blocks, over to my daughter's house to see my grandkids, and even that was a struggle because I thought, man, can I make it between here and there without anything happening to me? What if I pass out and no one's there to find me? Everything that was going on in my body and everything that was happening was anxiety. And it was then that God began to show me that, listen, you don't know how to trust me. He was going to walk me out of this. Yeah, those were pretty dark years back then. I'm so glad to be able to tell you today that God really did lead me out of that, and God really did help me. One of the people that He used to help me was a person by the name of Job. Most of you, if you've ever picked up a Bible, you know that Job is about somewhere right in the middle of the Bible, but it's actually the oldest book in the Bible, and it was probably written first. And I don't know about you, but how would you like to be Job? Let's be real about this. God says, okay, Job, I'm going to allow you to be used in a way that when everybody in the human race from now on has a problem, they can look at you and they will say, I don't have it that bad. Let's be real here. Job lost everything. You read the first few chapters, God and Satan are having a conversation, and God just says one thing. He says, have you considered my servant Job? And Job, from God saying that, Job was launched into this part of his life that was horrible. It was dark. It was a time of great loss. Job lost all of his servants, which would be considered employees today. He had hundreds of servants. He had people that worked his land. He had all these oxen, and today that would be equivalent to John Deere tractors. He had a lot of donkeys, and donkeys back then were more like Toyota Corollas because that's how they got around. And the Bible says that he was the richest, most powerful man in the world at that time. And just in a matter of hours, he had lost everything. He had lost his wealth. He had lost all of his livestock. He had lost all of his children. He had lost all of his grandchildren. And he had lost the respect and the love of his wife. And then to top it all off, on top of this, Job lost his health. In this exchange that happened between God and Satan. And Job, man, he really didn't have anything, he didn't really have anything to do with it. But see, Job was a man just like you and me. And one of the things he said was, that which I have feared the most has come to pass. Job was a person who lived in fear. And I know exactly what that feels like to live in fear. When my anxiety came on, it came on as a result of years of living by the question, what if? And it finally caught up with me, and that's when my body began and my mind began to break down. And for several years there, I was literally mentally sick with anxiety, and it overcame everything in my life. Listen to the words of Job, though, as he reaches one of his darkest moments during this experience, and tell me if you've ever felt like this before. Job said, "Even today my complaint is bitter. My hand is listless because of my groaning. Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come to his seat. I would present my case before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I would know the words which he would answer me and understand what he would say to me. Would he contend with me in his great power? No, but he would take note of me. There the upright could reason with him, and I would be delivered forever from my judge. Look, I go forward, but he's not there. And I go backward, but I cannot perceive him. When he works on the left hand, I cannot behold him. When he turns to the right hand, I cannot see him." And then in the midst of all this darkness, Job makes this statement. He says, "But he knows the way that I take. And when he has tried me, I shall come forth as gold." Man, when I read that, I saw how Job was just a person like you and me. He was a man who struggled with fear and whether or not he was going to trust God or not. He had all of his little rituals to try and make everything right every day. He tried to stay out in front of all the potential problems. And that's how I lived my life for many years. And then just in an instant, it was all stripped away. It was all taken away. As you can imagine, this would cause Job great depression, great discouragement, great fear. And if you can picture with me today a man sitting on the ground in sackcloth, putting ashes on his body and scraping the boils off of his body with a piece of broken pottery, he lifts up his voice and he says, "But he knows the way that I take. And when he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold." You know, if you're feeling like that right now and you're in the midst of one of those just times of bad anxiety, bad depression, I want to give you a little light. I want to give you a little truth that may be the first step up out of that pit. And that's the fact that God knows the way that you're taking. You know, nothing in your life has ever surprised him. Circumstances might be bad, but God knows. He's already walked that path. He's already been there, and He promises that He'll lead you through. Job took great peace in knowing that God knew the way that he was taking, and God knows the way that you're taking right now. And then he said, "He knoweth the way that I take, and when he has tried me." The second thing Job acknowledged here was that it was God who was allowing this to happen. It was God whose mighty hand was in the middle of these circumstances. As bad as they were, God's hand was in the middle of Job's circumstances. We can rest today knowing that our God is sovereign, and no matter how bad things seem to be around us or in our life, we can know for a fact that God is sovereign and that He is in control. And the last thing Job acknowledged was that when he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold. See, God knew that in the end, Job was going to be something or someone better than he was before. He was going to come forth as gold. I remember my dad, I think it was when I was growing up, preaching using an illustration about a goldsmith. When a goldsmith in the old ancient times would take raw gold and he'd put it in a pot, he would heat it up and he would cool it off, and he would heat it up and he would cool it off, and then as he would heat it up, he had this tool that he would wipe all the impurities off to the side as they would come to the top from that fire boiling that raw gold. And he knew that it was finished. He knew that that gold was pure whenever he would lean over and he would look in it and he could see his image in that pot. And you know, that's what this is all about. You may be thinking that fear and anxiety is ruining and ruling your life, but let me tell you, if you'll trust God through this and if you'll learn to trust Him, you can rest assured that when this is over, you're going to be pure gold and you will be able to have the image of Jesus Christ stamped on you. You will look like Him. You will look more like Him when this is over. When I went through this, and I called it the dark years, let me tell you, it was bad. I didn't think it was ever going to end. But when it did, now I can look back and I can see what God was doing. He was teaching me to trust Him. And believe me, He's teaching you right now. And that's what this is really about. You're not going to be the same person as you were when you started this. But let me tell you something. You can rest tonight. You can rest today in the fact that He knows the way that you take. And it's Him that's trying you. And when this is over, you're going to come forth as gold. Hey, I love you guys today. Thank you for watching my video blog. I look forward to seeing you again in just a little while. And I hope this was an encouragement to you. If it was, please share it with somebody else. Everybody knows somebody who's struggling with issues like this. So if you know somebody, please direct them to my YouTube page or my website, and maybe they can be encouraged too. Listen, God loves you. Don't ever forget that. Thank you.